Hello, welcome. This is just a very impromptu video I felt like making because sometimes when the moment moves you, it's important to act. And because of recent events in the media regarding the UK government's handling and management of COVID-19, lots of things I've been digesting them, so to speak, and the essay by Alexander Solzhenitsyn, "Live Not by Lies," was an essay that Solzhenitsyn penned in 1974, and he circulated it amongst the intellectual circles that he mixed in Moscow at the time. And it's dated the February the 12th, 1974, and the secret police broke into his apartment. The next day he was exiled to the West Germany. And the essay was a call to courage and serves as a light to all who value truth. And I'm going to read the essay in its entirety in due course in this video. But because certain things have been coming to light regarding the UK government, especially regarding COVID-19, we're at the stage now where there are an awful lot of talk about vaccines. And they're trying to sell us the hope that the vaccine will be some utopian solution to this. Of course, Dr. Fauci in America has said that even with the vaccine, social distancing and masks, etc., possibly lockdowns as well, will be required. So, that backs up what Bill Gates hopes to happen. And I say hopes because I don't think he wants it any other way, frankly. Someone can prove me otherwise. He said that he thinks the first vaccines that are developed won't do that much. It'll take a second or third generation vaccine. Now, doubt about the UK government's handling of this has reached mainstream media. The Daily Mail, LBC, Majid Nawaz, for example. I heard this today, which is very interesting. Discussing chamocracy, the fact that Matt Hancock has been giving contracts for various things regarding dealing with the COVID-19 situation. And I've known for quite a while now that Patrick Vallance, Chris Whitty, Matt Hancock, Kate Bingham, the head of the vaccine task force, for example, they have all got links with drug companies and interests in vaccine development. The transparency around this is nowhere near where it should be. The questioning around about this is nowhere near where it should be. I'm all for developing medicines. Medicines are important. However, when there's vested interests and conflicts of interest, these should be held to account. And this has not been discussed enough in the media. And yet, the same people who are promoting the vaccine, people like Matt Hancock, Patrick Vallance, etc., are very concerned about dangerous misinformation about vaccines and vaccine hesitancy, etc., etc. Well, you can't have it both ways. You have to be transparent about what's going on. And one of the big things that they're not discussing at the daily briefings, neither the UK government, Scottish Parliament, Welsh, Northern Irish, is that these new vaccines are exempt from any liability for harm or death. So if anyone takes one and they get harmed or they die, there is no recourse to anything. The vaccine damage payment scheme on the UK government website, COVID-19 vaccine is not in there, exempt. Now, the MHRA, the medical, I forgot the actual name for it, but it's the MHRA who regulatory medicines people are expecting a high demand of reporting of the adverse effects with this new vaccine. This has not been reported either to any great extent. And it's not been reported either that in the vaccine development, the MHRA, because of the demand for the development of the vaccine, certain steps in ethics in the vaccine development were skipped over. So in other words, safety is very much the usual safety ethics procedures have been skipped over in some degree. There is no discussion of that. I'm not saying that doesn't mean they're safe, but it's quite clear certain things have changed for the speedy development of this vaccine. Now, in my last video, I talked about the loss of religious sensibility. Now, people who are religious minded will know fine well that, for example, telling lies as a moral, ethical thing is frowned upon. Even white lies, withholding truth, being deceptive. Here's what I think. I get the distinct impression that powers that be, the Matt Hancocks of this world, are being quite deceptive in not being transparent about a lot of things that are going on. They seem to have no problem being deceptive. And a lot of people who have bought into the fear of the COVID-19 scenario, and people who are also supporting it, who believe in it, are not, or have an inability to perhaps recognise or have a deliberate effort to not recognise the deception that's going on. This is not unusual in such regimes. I got this book recently, A Manual for Christian Dissidents by Dreher. It's just been released. And in the book, I haven't read it yet actually, I just got it the other day. I just read the introduction, and he interviewed people who lived under Soviet communism or in the old Eastern Europe and different regimes, Czech Republic, Czechoslovakia, Poland, etc. And there's many similarities what's going on now with the censorship regarding COVID-19, the threats of censorship about talking about vaccines, threats of censorship about many things, the data, etc. And I just want to read just a tiny little bit of this introduction, which sums up perhaps what we may have to go through. A Soviet-born emigre who teaches in a university deep in the US heartland stresses the urgency of Americans taking people like her seriously. No one took her seriously, her warnings. She said, he or she, "You will not be able to predict what will be held against you tomorrow," she warns. "You have no idea what completely normal thing you do today or say today will be used against you to destroy you." This is what people in the Soviet Union saw. We know how this works. On the other hand, my Czech emigre friend advised me not to waste time writing this book. People will have to live through it firsthand to understand, he says cynically. Any time I try to explain current events and their meaning to my friends or acquaintances, I am met with blank stares or downright nonsense. Maybe he is right, but for the sake of his children and mine, I wrote this book to prove him wrong. Echoing, I think, some of the things I've said in my videos about people have to speak up. But of course, people are not. And maybe people will have to live through this to realise what's going on. But there's another book that I'm reading at the moment called Stasiland. The author is Anna. I'll put the link below. Anna someone. Terrible with names, I'm sorry. Many people capitulate, go along with it. They think they can escape the oppression of what's going on. But before I read this essay by Alexander Solzhenitsyn, just remember that Dr. Michael Yeadon, his YouTube video outlining his reasons why he thinks the UK government are handling the COVID situation in a wrong way, has been censored. His video was banned from YouTube. This is very serious. In the video, you can get it on other platforms. I'll put the link below to the video. He outlines some of the things, e.g. the PCR test, etc., and why this lockdown and lockdown restrictions are not over because Sage said it's not over. As I said, there's a lot of questions regarding the vaccine. There's a lot of questions regarding the data, and there's no transparency, and people are being shut down. That's the situation we're at. So, taking the lead from Alexander Solzhenitsyn, I'll read his essay out in its entirety. It's a couple of pages. Here we go. At one time we dared not even to whisper. Now we write and read samizdat. Samizdat was kind of underground literature. It was banned, censored. And sometimes when we gather in the smoking room at the Science Institute, we complain frankly to one another. What kind of tricks are they playing on us? Where are they dragging us? Gratuitous boasting of cosmic achievements while there is poverty and destruction at home. Propping up remote, uncivilized regimes. Fanning up civil war. And we recklessly fostered Mao Zedong at our expense. And it will be we who are sent to war against him and will have to go. Is there any way out? And they put on trial anyone, anybody they want, and they put sane people in silence. Always they, and we are powerless. Just to say, you hear the echoes of that regarding people, regarding COVID dissidents who don't believe the government regime. There's a lot of call for people to be locked up. Nothing much changes in history. So, things carrying on. Things have almost reached rock bottom. A universal spiritual death has already touched us all, and physical death will soon flare up and consume us both and our children. But as before, we will smile in a cowardly way and mumble without tongues tied. But what can we do to stop it? We haven't the strength. We have been so hopelessly dehumanized that for today's modest ration of food, we are willing to abandon all our principles, our souls, all the efforts of our predecessors, and all the opportunities for our descendants. But just don't disturb our fragile existence. We lack staunchness, pride, and enthusiasm. We don't even fear universal nuclear death. We don't fear a third world war. We have already taken refuge in the crevices. We just fear acts of civil courage. People fear standing up, protesting, taking off their masks. We fear only to lag behind the herd and take a step alone, and suddenly we find ourselves without white bread, without heating gas, and without a Moscow registration. We have been indoctrinated in political courses, and in just the same way was fostered the idea to live comfortably, and all will be well for the rest of our lives. You can't escape your environment and social conditions. Everyday life defines consciousness. What does it have to do with us? We can't do anything about it. But we can. Everything. But we lie to ourselves for assurance. And it is not they who are to blame for everything. We ourselves. Only we. One can object. But actually, Toy can think anything you like. Gags have been stuffed into our mouths. Nobody wants to listen to us, and nobody asks us. How can we force them to listen? It is impossible to change their minds. It would be natural to vote them out of office, but there are not elections in our country. In the West, people know about strikes and protest demonstrations, but we are too oppressed. And gatherings and protests are now difficult now in the UK. Just bear that in mind. And it is a horrible prospect for us. How can one suddenly renounce a job and take to the streets? How can one work if one doesn't get a test for COVID-19 or take a vaccine? Yet, the other fatal paths probed during the past century by our bitter Russian history are, nevertheless, not for us, and truly we don't need them. Now that the axes have done their work, when everything which was sown has sprouted anew, we can see that the young and presumptuous people who thought they would make our country just and happy through terror, bloody rebellion, and civil war were themselves misled. No thanks, fathers of education. Now we know that infamous methods breed infamous results. Let our hands be clean. The circle, is it closed? And is there really no way out? And is there only one thing left for us to do? To wait without taking action? Maybe something will happen by itself. It will never happen as long as we daily acknowledge, extol, and strengthen, and do not sever ourselves from the most perceptible of his aspects, lies. When violence intrudes into peaceful life, its face glows with self-confidence, as if it were carrying a banner and shouting, "I am violence. Run away, make way for me, I will crush you." But violence quickly grows old, and it has lost confidence in itself. And in order to maintain a respectable face, it summons falsehood as its ally. Since violence lays its ponderous paw not every day and not on every shoulder, it demands from us only obedience to lies and daily participation in lies. All loyalty lies in that. And the simplest and most accessible key to our self-neglected liberation lies right here. Personal non-participation in lies. I'll read that again. Personal non-participation in lies. Though lies conceal everything, though lies embrace everything, but not with any help from me. This opens a breach in the imaginary encirclement caused by our inaction. It is the easiest thing to do for us, but the most devastating for the lies. Because when people renounce lies, it simply cuts short their existence. Like an infection, they can exist only in a living organism. We do not exhort ourselves. We have not sufficiently matured to march into the squares and shout the truth loud, or to express aloud what we think. It's not necessary. It's dangerous. But let us refuse to say that which we do not think. This is our path, and the easiest and most accessible one, which takes into account our inherent cowardice, already well rooted, and it is much easier, it's dangerous even to say this, than the sort of civil disobedience which Gandhi advocated. Our path is to walk away from the Ganga's boundary. If we did not paste together the dead bones and scales of ideology, if we did not sew together the rotting rags, we would be astonished how quickly the lies would be rendered helpless and subside. That which should be naked would then really appear naked before the whole world. So in our timidity, let each of us make a choice, whether consciously to remain a servant of falsehood. Of course, it is not out of inclination, but to feed one's family, that one raises his children in the spirit of lies, or to shrug off the lies and become an honest man, worthy of respect, both of one's children and contemporaries. And from that day onward he will not henceforth write, sign, or print in any way a single phrase which his opinion distorts the truth, will utter such a phrase neither in private conversation, not in the presence of many people, neither on his own behalf, not at the prompting of someone else, either in the role of agitator, teacher, educator, and not in a theatrical role. Will not depict, foster, or broadcast a single idea which he can only see is false or a distraction from the truth, whether it be in printing, painting, sculpture, photography, technical science, or music. Will not cite out of context, either orally or written, a single quotation so as to please someone, to feather his own nest, not to achieve success in his work. If he does not share completely the idea which is quoted, or if it does not accurately reflect the matter at issue. Will not allow himself to be compelled to attend demonstrations or meetings if they are contrary to his desire or will. Will neither take into hand nor raise into the air a poster or slogan which he does not completely accept. Think clap for carers, rainbows in windows. Will not raise his hand to vote for a proposal which he does not sincerely sympathise. Will vote neither openly nor strictly for a person whom he considers unworthy or of doubtful abilities. Think of the politicians voting for the lockdown and not questioning the Hancocks, the Whitties, the Valences, the Sturgeons. Will not allow himself to be dragged to a meeting where there can be expected forced or distorted discussion of a question. Will immediately talk out of a meeting, session, lecture, performance, or film showing if he hears a speaker tell lies or purvey ideological nonsense or shameless propaganda. Think of our politicians again. Will not subscribe to or buy a newspaper or magazine in which information is distorted and primary facts are concealed. Of course, we have not listed all of the possible and necessary deviations from falsehood, but a person who purifies himself will easily distinguish other instances with his purified outlook. No, it will not be the same for everybody at first. Some, at first, will lose their jobs. It's happened in the UK. For young people who want to live with truth, This will, in the beginning, complicate their young lives very much, because the required recitations are stuffed with lies, and it is necessary to make a choice. But there are no loopholes for anybody who wants to be honest. On any given day, any one of us will be confronted with at least one of the above-mentioned choices, even in the most secure of the technical sciences. Either truth or falsehood, towards spiritual independence or towards spiritual servitude. And he who is not sufficiently courageous even to defend his soul, don't let him be proud of his progressive views. Don't let him boast that he is an academic or a people's artist, a merit figure or a general. Let him say to himself, I am in the herd and a coward. It's all the same to me as long as I'm fed and warm. Even this path, which is the most modest of all paths of resistance, will not be easy for us, but it is much easier than self-immolation or a hunger strike. The flames will not envelop your body, your eyeballs. Your eyeballs will not burst from the heat, and brown bread and clean water will always be available to your family. A great people of Europe, the Czechoslovaks, whom we betrayed and deceived, haven't they shown us how a vulnerable breast can stand up even against tanks, if there is a worthy heart within it? You say it will not be easy, but it will be easiest of all possible resources. It will not be an easy choice for a body, but it is the only one for a soul. No, it is not an easy path, but there are already people, even dozens of them, who over the years have maintained all these points and live by the truth. So you will not be the first to take this path, but will join those who have already taken it. This path will be easier and shorter for all of us if we take it by mutual efforts and close rank. If there are thousands of us, they will not be able to do anything with us. If there are tens of thousands of us, then we would not even recognize our country. If we are too frightened, then we should stop complaining that someone is suffocating us. We ourselves are doing it. Let us then bow down even more. Let us wail. And our brothers, the biologists, will help to bring nearer the day when they are able to read our thoughts, are worthless, hopeless. I think that's a typo. It's meant to say biographers, I think. And if we get cold feet, even taking this step, then we are worthless and hopeless, and the scorn of Pushkin should be directed to us. Why should cattle have the gifts of freedom? Their heritage from generation to generation is the belled yoke and the lash. Very thought-provoking words. I'll just leave it with you to digest. There's a lot there that's relevant to what's going on in the UK and Europe and the world at the moment. Live not by lies. Live not by lies. I'll leave it there. See you next time.